Welcome back to the Design Principles podcast. Today on the show, we have a very inspirational guest, someone who's made a significant impact in the architecture and construction community in New Zealand and continues to do so, Pamela Bell. This is a high-level conversation with Pam where we talk about a range of things such as networking, design thinking, alternative business models, and the importance of fostering strong relationships. One of my favorite concepts of Pam's is not to be afraid to reach out and connect with more like-minded people and always finish the conversation with, who are 3 more people I can have coffees with? Hope you enjoy the pod.
You've got a next level mic, man. You sound unbelievable.
Because I'm holding it. That's my desk.
That's a podcast voice if ever I heard one.
Sign me up.
Yeah, you do sound good, actually.
We might just ask you questions.
Oh. Well,
all right. We've got 45 minutes, so should we crack into it?
Yeah.
I guess it's probably worth starting with I know you've probably done this a million times, Pam, but maybe like a bit of a background just for to summarize. I know you've gone from the amazing accomplishment to amazing accomplishment, so worth a summary.
Yeah, cool. Kia ora e te whānau. Ko Pamela Bell, toka ingoa. I'm Pamela Bell, and I have the benefit of hindsight because I'm over 50 now. I can look back and actually see a theme, which I didn't see when I was obviously just a sprog. So from studying architecture, I took a break and was curious about sport because I've never been any good at it. But I'd grown up in the mountains with my family, my whānau. We loved the snow. I still love the snow. And I followed that path through snowboarding, which was just emerging. And it was really entrepreneurial. So it became turned into World Cup and Olympics for snowboarding, which is a nice way to put a pin in it. So then I was able to go back to architecture school. And what I found really interesting at architecture school is all this narrative-driven stuff. I just thought it was bullshit. So I was really interested in what's not a model or a drawing. So I did stuff like hand-in clothing and jewellery and magazines. And my final year project was a catwalk with a model that fainted, which managed to help me evade a few curly questions from Peter Wood. But yeah, I was super interested then after doing a little bit of architecture practice and getting sick of lining up someone's bathroom tiles in their 3rd bathroom when I thought they only needed 1 bathroom to start with. I got out of practice and went back to uni and did a master's, which was a really stupid decision because it was right before it turned into a master's degree anyway. So I was probably one of the last voluntary master's people. But I was super curious about prefabrication and being way more efficient. I didn't totally get this whole custom approach that architecture has and doing stuff from scratch. That just didn't make sense. So I did a thesis on Kiwi prefabricated housing. And it was all first-hand research, which was awesome because I had a small baby by then and I just needed to get out of the house every now and then. So I got to do first-hand research from Kaitaia to Wanaka, and then tested that with a bit of a symposium, I guess, back at Victoria University.
It was a great thesis, by the way. I think I read it probably a dozen times, and it was a huge precedent of my thesis as well. So
that's awesome, Ben, because I totally believe in being accessible and accessible architecture, accessible writing, architecture for the people, connecting with people. None of this black turtleneck, black rim glasses scenario, So for me, it's all about just writing in really common language. And so because I had no idea what happens after a thesis, I did that splattergun approach and put in, for applications for grants to turn it into an exhibition, to turn it into a book. And then I didn't anticipate at the end of that symposium that people would be like, okay, let's make an industry association, and why don't you do all the hard mahi, Pam? And I was like, oh, whoa, okay. So by then I had like 2 children and a startup, writing a book, and an exhibition, and it all kind of happened at the same time. It was probably the most intense part of my life, because also my husband at the time lost his father and was kind of plunged into depression. And, we talk about work all the time, right? But work's the easy bit. All the life stuff right then was just intense. Yeah. But the really good thing was we got a Kiwi Prefab exhibition in Taranaki at Pukeariki in New Plymouth there. And there were houses outside that people could walk into around the waterfront. And there was a full history inside and all these cute little puzzles that kids could engage with. So it was that total something for everyone, People in their buggies and all the rest just walked into these houses. And it was just super fun. It was really entrepreneurial, fun time. Whole Prefab NZ stuff, just like snowboarding. It's all the start of something. That's where I get my buzz is in the startup or the refresh or where new things are happening at that junction between design and business. I know I've just given a way longer answer than you wanted, Ben.
No, that's great.
Where I've landed now is so I drove Prefab NZ for about 10 years. As soon as Fletcher's had a factory, as soon as the government was doing stuff around policy, I was like, man, my job is done. This has been fun, but I'm a starter, not a process maker. So time to hand it over to someone else. And I was super curious about big stuff like government or big commercial. So I tried that whole consultant contractor thing for a bit. And I got to try a little bit of stuff around kāinga ora, around this quite interesting tech platform out of Australia, which was about certifying builders. So clients know if they've got a 4-star or a 5-star or, God help us, worse builder that they're buying off the plans. Yeah, iCert, independent construction industry rating tools based on over 200 data points. Super interesting. But, that was through COVID. I was lucky. I was already Zooming and working from home. So I got through COVID and then I was like, people, quite keen to have a team again. So I saw the Institute of Building, and I don't know what you guys know about the Institute of Building, but I was like, oof, that's a middle-aged white boys club. Let's get in there and shake some stuff up.
It doesn't surprise me.
and they were like, oh, yeah, we want to do this. And I was like, are you sure? Are you sure you really want to do this? Because once I'm in here, we're going to need to put in some innovation and inclusion and encourage the young people to get involved. But, so I've been there 2 years and, I was shaking up some shizzle. It's good fun. And I do governance stuff on the side as well, because I'm curious about how boards work and how strategy works, and I love spotting the gaps and problem solving. So that's kind of my passion stuff. Social housing, innovation and construction. So stuff like Abodo wood, which is, thermally modified timber or cooked wood with no nasties. Stuff like Urban Plus, which is social housing developer, which is owned by Hut City. Yeah, so a few things like that. So, that's my
awesome.
Little mix. I like having a bit of a mix going on.
Spotting the gap, the opportunity, and then adding or innovation is this industry has had very little of that over the years, and now it's I don't know. I think it's so awesome, and I think a lot of people need to push that even further, if at all possible.
I think we probably don't shine the light on innovation enough, Ben. I reckon if you walk onto any site, there'll be a bunch of folks doing stuff differently, but we're not measuring it, we're not capturing it. We have this shitty credential that we're one of the worst, lowest productivity industries. But I have heard a lot of people talk about how we maybe don't capture that stuff. I've just come right now from the opening of or the launch of Rooms to Ruma, which is conveniently in Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, our Māori language week, and it's driven by an architecture firm, Peddle Thorpe, with our Māori language commission. And it's about adding Māori room names into, Autodesk. It's makes a huge amount of sense. Cool. Yeah, it's just a start, right? But it's are people doing innovative stuff?
That's a small innovation that has a big impact, really, isn't it?
Well, even small stuff takes a long time. Like, I reckon they've been working on that for a couple of years, Yeah.
How this might be a bit early in the conversation, and maybe this is a bit of a trigger, but how are you finding, recent changes in policy in the built environment in terms of innovation? I feel like we've just taken a huge step backwards recently. What's your thought on that?
That's a super broad question, Sam.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I think it's really important to talk about, we operate at so many different levels, right? The 10,000-foot view is the whole political ecosystem. And right now, well, we're here in Portiki, Wellington, Whanganui-Atara, and it's like super sad. I think Paddy Gower wrote an awesome article and stuff a couple of days ago about Wellington needs hugs. We so do. But we need some pretty tough love hugs too, right? We've just got to pick ourselves up and support each other, support local business. We've experienced 7,000 redundancies in our government sector. Our construction and infrastructure sector is really having the toughest time I think any of us have lived through.
Yeah.
Even worse than the GFC. Firms that have been around since then are laying off people when they've never had to do it before. But, this is where we have to jump into that kind of half glass full or making lemonades out of lemons scenario, which is this is our time to connect with each other, really make sure we know where everyone's at and we're either poised or we're collaborating already. Get our marketing super sorted, know exactly who we are, what's the niche, what do we own, because the smaller that space is, then we're that expert in that niche. So it's a time to really drill down into your brand proposition, your value proposition. What do I offer clients? Stay super connected, which I said. And also a time to do that stuff that I'm not a big fan of, but we have to sort out our processes, make sure we're just like super efficient. We've got all our tech sorted, all that stuff. That's really important. So I just think we're really good at winding up and we're really rubbish at pausing and dealing with quieter spots. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of what we've found is it's this year, well, even last year and this year in particular, it's been sort of an anti-productivity or an anti-production realm in which we're working. But what it's provided is that it's provided us with the opportunity for innovation because you're just given, you're offered the chance of time and space to think a little bit differently and to change processes and things. And I think that's what's quite interesting to be nice to see. And I think we're starting to see it a little bit as well when we sort of come out the other end.
Yeah.
That there's going to be much better policies in place, much better like systems in place, much better construction methodologies in place, because we've been finally afforded a bit of time to think differently, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I think it's all in our approach. It is a gift, as you say, to be given time to really think about what you're doing and make sure you are living to the values that you're trying to deliver for your clients. It's also a time to connect, fill your brain, go to events. I have to say that stuff because that's the area I'm in as well. Like this industry association area has been pretty interesting for me to kind of get my head around. When we started Prefab NZ, I didn't know what an industry association was. I mean, I think I've been a member of Te Kahui Whaihanga Institute of Architects and now work with Women in Construction, but I'd never driven an industry association. And we thought of ourselves more as a social enterprise, like just having something on our bottom line other than financial, right? We were trying to make change and get people opening up to the idea that there might be other ways to build other than traditionally. But I think when you have a look out there, as you move forward in your career, you've got kind of your skills and your quals in one hand, and then you've got all your people connections in the other, right? Our industry is a massive relationship-driven industry. If you have a look at all your LinkedIn contacts or this podcast that you guys are doing, it's all about connecting to other people, getting other people connected, helping the magic happen, the ideas flow, getting that stuff through to people, getting them excited and influencing them. Breaking down the barriers. So it's, the people side of it's really important. now's an awesome time to kind of fill yourself up with resources and people. I know that at the Institute of Building, we have a little series called Industry Insights, and we ran some webinars on stuff like, basically how to deal with interviews and CVs, because a lot of people are changing jobs. But also we got a bunch of our board members in and did stuff around the state of the industry. And I don't know about you, but it's so good to get together with people in the industry or adjacent industries and just kind of ask what's on top. What are those 3 things keeping you awake at night? And just hear about people's approaches. That's the most useful part of any board meeting that I get involved with, is just doing that roundtable to start with and just getting all those perspectives in the room. And it also helps people take their day hat off and get that board meeting hat on. We've got board members who have got the most incredible positive approaches. They spend all day making basically business development calls, coffees, lunches, you name it, just basically connecting with people. And then they're doing the mahi, the emails at night. Like, you can't sustain that for a long time, but that is a really interesting approach when, you can't just sit at home and complain, oh shit, my work's dried up. You've just got to get out there and connect with people.
Yeah, it's a time to be proactive, that's for sure.
Yeah. So that's a different answer to your political question, because I think we're seeing some changes in work and pipeline procurement, which is impacting our industry. The green shoots, I guess, would be health and defence, those areas.
Yep.
Because I'm a Wellingtonian, I'm really hoping there's some pipes in there. I would like my water to flow.
Not onto the road.
No,
I want it to flow into the houses,
yeah,
not onto the road.
Through the tap, yeah. Yeah.
And so, Pam, you teach a course at Victoria University, the design thinking. I'm not sure, are you still doing that? You do it with people like Guy and with Jed and other awesome innovators, I guess?
Yeah, I love awesome humans. So because I love the intersection between business and design, and because I went through the architecture schooling system and got a little bit miffed about day one when they said, hey, 2 things, folks, if you're here to make money, get up and leave now. And we're like, huh? What? And then the second thing they said was, if any of your mates in your flats and the hostels are studying law, stay close to them because you're going to need them later on. And we were just like, holy smokes, what kind of litigious, non-paying industry are we getting into? So I think there's a little failing there. And then, of course, as you know, they throw you into the fire, don't they? You have to stand up and defend your work. I went to architecture school straight out of secondary school, and I was shy, hopeless thing. And I saw people who were returned students. They were builders, they were nurses, they'd done all kinds of stuff, and they just kind of knew who they were. They were able to stand behind their work and be like, this is it, this is me, I support it, this is my reasoning, my rationale, don't really give a what you're going to say. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to be like. And so that helped me take a year out of architecture school that turned into 7 years snowboarding. And when I came back, I was just like, there's something about architecture which is so much about pulling stuff from within you. You go there thinking it's going to be like secondary school and they're going to give you layers of new stuff and you just absorb it. But it's the opposite experience to that. It's about pulling things up and out. It's a hard process to explain to anyone who hasn't been through it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a good
definitely
coming out of architecture school, if you can learn to trust yourself and want to be yourself versus like copying other people's work. I think the answers mostly are within you.
Yeah. Finding your own
design-wise, anyway.
Yeah, and I think sometimes if you just look back at all the stuff you've handed in through your 5 years at architecture school, you could be like, oh, there's the thing. Wasn't aware of it at the time, but be a bit objective.
Yeah. And so what does the design thinking process look like? Yeah.
Cool. So the whole reason we set up that design thinking business course was because I wanted young people to have some way to have conversations about business, because I fundamentally disagree that we deliver a 5-year degree without talking about business. And I know there's a little bit of prof prac in there, but I don't think that's as useful.
That is funny.
I mean, that's a start.
10 minutes.
Yeah. So the other thing I really believe is that architecture is an awesome degree in thinking and strategic approach, and you can take that into anything you do. So that's the second thing. The third thing is that in a downturn, folks come out of architecture school, graduates, and do whatever the cool creative thing is that's happening at that time. So at one point that was, the whole Lord of the Rings set. I mean, we had flatmates that were creating sets because there weren't architecture jobs. At one point, believe it or not, it was people developing websites, so way back in the day. And then more recently, there's this huge rise in something called design thinking, which is where the corporate world has captured the way architects think and basically trademarked it, the design sprint, etc., etc. So there is no reason why architecture graduates can't go into local government, central government, commercial businesses and teach design thinking. And I actually think some of the consultancies, the Beckers and ACOMs and Oricons and GHDs and WSPs of this world, they are starting to pick up on this around the front end of a project. Because, of course, a client walks in the door and goes, oh, I want a widget. I want this kind of building. But they've just walked in with an answer, right? The trick is obviously to get them into the question asking, what's the problem to solve phase, which is that design thinking approach, right? Oh, you don't actually need a building. You actually just need to rejig this, do some work from home, blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously, the tension for architects and consultants is that you want to sell your services. But in the efforts of sustainability and in seeing what's happening offshore, like places like Norway, where they've got much more of a reuse mandate, we're going to have to start getting better at solving people's problems, not always with an architectural solution. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's about identifying or figuring out what the actual problem is and understanding it a little bit more in depth than what you'd kind of normally do, and then coming up with solutions for the problem in more of like an agile approach. Is the whole idea to figure it out a little bit faster, so you get like the more of like a feedback loop, and the information gets fed back into the system a little bit better, as opposed to kind of just disappearing? Or like, where's the value?
Look, there's lots of ways to look at what design thinking is, and as an approach, the design sprint is obviously a way to get clients and a range of stakeholders involved in the design process, and you take them through like a hot box for a week. I think there are some really good questions around design thinking. Sorry, Gerard, I like the problem to solve or what has to be true. Like, there's just some really good question starters, and obviously there's a lot of post-its. But, it's just a way to get people really on board the design journey. And I think that's an important thing to do in architecture, is to break down the barriers so that it's not the black turtleneck and glasses, it's not a them and us, it's not different language, it's everybody in the room, early engagement, all that stuff. Yeah. But the thing with that design thinking business course is, I think we set it up before COVID. I set it up as a 6-week online, lots of pre-recorded webinars, and we did really fun assessments, like got people to do a LinkedIn profile for themselves in 20 years' time. We showed them stories of some other grads who had gone on to like design basketball kicks for Nike, gone on to do massive urban design projects like painting out streets and bicycle lanes all around the world from New York. So lots of these great stories so that folks can imagine themselves doing something other than just working for someone else in a studio. And then, of course, examples like Makers, First Light, basically like what you guys did in terms of just go out and buy a CNC machine and get going, find some friends, get started, like that's an option too. Be entrepreneurial about it, which is what all three of you are doing. Yeah.
I think that whole entrepreneurial thing is a huge thing for me anyway. I know you did like an MBA with Seth Godin, who's an absolute master. One thing that I found, especially through the Makers era, was what we really needed, or what I personally really needed, was like some sort of like mentor to kind of speed you through, especially the business realm, because there's really no one out there to lead you or to teach you the ins and outs of what business actually looks like. And it really did take us 5 years to even understand the basics of business. And similar to you, I went and did an MBA at Vic there, and then I was like, oh my god, like it's just like what you actually need to know, or what everyone should know, is just missing completely from any of those industries. So it's so good to see some sort of design thinking processes, and any kind of innovation in that realm is essential, in my opinion.
Hey, congrats. I didn't know you'd done your MBA. That's awesome. Mine was just a baby alt MBA. And that's what inspired me to design that design thinking business one, because that alt MBA was delivered all internationally, like over Zoom and Slack. And so we used all the same tools when we did the design thinking business space. But you're absolutely right. Business is one of those funky things where I think you probably learn more from doing it. So it's good to start with really low risk option, just it's like any prototype, right? And that's a design thinking thing too, right? Make a messy start, prototype, learn, reiterate. Yeah. So that's a design thinking approach. So applying that to your own business makes a lot of sense. But also it's like what we started out talking about, people and connections alongside your skills and quals. You've got to reach out and just have a coffee and ask for 3 more ideas of who to have coffee with, and just have this massive network of, right, I've got a team problem, I know who to talk to about that. Right, I've got a GST problem, I know who to talk to about that. And people are always happy to be asked. If you validate and help someone feel helpful, you're doing them a service. So it's quite good to turn that around in your head, and especially for young women. It's really hard to ask for help and to perceive that you might be inconveniencing someone, but actually it's a gift to ask someone to help you, because then they feel useful. And I think it's great to take that approach in through any kind of mentor-mentee type relationship. It's just like having your own board of directors, right? Just have a handful of people that you can trust and you can reach out for questions. Mentors love it if you come with a really specific question. Come armed with curiosity. That's a gift to them. Make their job easy.
I find it interesting because going through this process, we're relatively new business, I think 3.5 years in play. And when we started out, I think it was a little bit of maybe nervousness, but then also like a little bit of pride. You didn't want to like reach out too much because you didn't want to be seen to be not knowing what you're doing or failing or anything like that. But then ultimately, once you sort of swallow that pride and then just ask the questions, people were so forthcoming and so helpful. And it was not like, oh, you don't know what you're doing? No, we're not going to help you. You need to like make your own mistakes. They were like, yeah, we've been through that. What's the point in like holding all this knowledge and not sharing it? And I was really surprised at how giving the industry was, particularly 100%. Particularly when we come from an industry which is inherently quite competitive, I find, from a design perspective. But, at the end of the day, people never looked at it like that. But I think that was maybe my own potential insecurities in starting the business and, being a smaller fish in a huge pond. Yeah. I didn't want to ask the questions. But as soon as you got over that,
Sam, there is so much in what you're saying. But first of all, good on you for being objective and knowing that you felt really funky going into those conversations. There's nothing wrong with being authentic and going into the room being like, hey, I've just realized I haven't got all the answers. Can someone help me here? I've got some things I'm curious about, some things I'm struggling with. And, if you lay that on the table, someone else will open up and be like, oh, yeah, I'm struggling with this too. You need to take that. When you're a young parent, and I don't know if any of you guys are, but that is exactly the attitude you take into all those parent meetups. It's like, I'm either going in to help someone or I'm going in with a question that I just cannot solve right now. And of course, as you know, with parenting, you've got to have 10 ways to solve one question, because one thing works once and then not the other 9 times. But I think what you're talking about is there is a mentoring structure inside architecture. which construction actually looks at architecture and goes, oh, I wish we could be like that, because architecture's got small practice groups. So you can make the most of that. In terms of being competitive, you've just got to own your niche. So then you know that no one's competing with you, right? It's your niche. Oof, you own it. But builders, and Ben, you'll know this, it's a different scenario. The builders are like, we can't get together because that's seen as collusion. We can't get together and talk about stuff. They have got way more of a problem in this space about how do I talk about business. And so there is some work happening right now. The Building Construction Training Fund, the BCTF, is starting a wee project around how to get business, hopefully, as a micro-credential, so that you can have it in your pocket on your phone, but into a bunch of, trades and stuff, because it is a real issue. Everyone just jumps out and buys a brand new ute, starts a business, and doesn't think, what actually do I need to know?
It's tough. There's some tough learning curves out there. I found with my scenario, the added complication of furniture and objects and such, which I found is like, I don't know. And looking back to when I was just doing architecture, it was so easy, and I've found it kind of near on impossible to find somebody who does a similar business model.
Well, that's really interesting, Gerard, because I wonder if you need so similar or different.
Too different.
You could talk to Formway, who are obviously a furniture success story in New Zealand. That's a scale story, isn't it? And I'm super happy to connect you with folks if you want. And you can talk with anyone who's in other industries, because it's that adjacency that's so interesting. I know at Prefab NZ we used to reach out to look at adjacent industries. Like, what is the composites industry doing, like in yachting, around making super yachts and stuff? And what's the film industry doing? What's the fire engine industry doing? Because they were using like modularization. So you can look for adjacencies as well, right?
Yeah,
like,
the biggest adjacency.
When I talk about a BODO, which is basically upskilling, upvaluing pine, I talk about icebreaker or Allbirds, which is taking a shitty in product and then making an added value out product, right? So find what do you like, and find another business model in another industry. I mean, what other tactics do you guys use to get business advice?
Podcasts is what I was going to say before, but the problem with podcasts is it's a one-way street, isn't it? You never actually get any advice. You just get other people's perspectives, but it does broaden the horizon significantly. I listen to a lot of international podcasts, and I find them really interesting for sure. But I nothing beats one-on-one networking for sure.
Yeah. You can choose them, or you can go through an agency like Business Mentors New Zealand. You pay something like a $200 admin fee, and then you get connected to someone. I did that for a few years. I got Chris Bishop's dad, John Bishop.
Wow.
He was my mentor for a few years.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
but what were you going to say, Sam? What do you do? Where do you find your business now?
Yeah, I was just going to say we share an office space with a builder, and it's interesting. Even though we are in the same industry, I'd almost say we're like you said, industry adjacent, because we're doing we're in the same industry, but we're doing quite different things, and we are learning. Over the last year that we've been sharing an office, we've learned huge amounts from each other and been able to apply them into our business structure. So it's even like sharing space with like-minded people. I think those sort of work share model type office spaces are a really good hub for bettering your knowledge. That's for sure. And a couple of years ago, we were living down in Wanaka, and I shared an office space with. It was a film studio. There was a marketing outfit in there. There was an interior designer and photographers as well. And we're all creative adjacent, I guess, but everybody came at things from a different perspective. And I think in the 3 months that I spent down there, I learned more about understanding what I wanted to do as a business, or who I wanted or what I wanted the business to be, than I have in the 3.5 years that I've existed. So
That's
just
spot
having
on.
that different perspective was super helpful.
Yep. You've just got to find the things that you're curious about and then go have a coffee with them or move in with them or have a relationship with them in some way, which is exactly what you're doing. But it's the same way you approach anything, isn't it? If you want to learn about it, you've just got to go after it. It's not going to come to you. We're doing the same thing. I'm really interested in what is an industry association into the future, because we're so connected online. What does in-person connection look like in the future? And what kind of digital tools are we going to need to help facilitate that more? So we're about to move into an office with a digital technology agency and a brand agency, because that's where I see that we're going to learn more. So, and also they're fun people. So you've got to go find the fun people.
Mm-hmm.
And because, it's Wellington or New Zealand, Sam, I know that Ben Nansett is a great builder. And his wife, Hannah Nansett, is our projects lead at the Institute of Building. And I know that's one of the reasons we're talking today.
Exactly, yep. I wasn't going to name drop, but there we go.
Oh, yeah, this is how you give props to your people. Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
Pam, before you touched on what a good business model versus a bad business model, and how you were never really interested in architecture or the architecture realm and how they conducted business, I guess. What are some examples of a good
Man, you
business
are putting some words
model?
in my mouth, Ben Sutherland.
Well, maybe
I really steer away from that good-bad paradigm.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, I did get pissed off with architecture because it was so repetitive and it wasn't. I think architecture's got a massive job to teach clients, and I hope that's what you guys are all doing. This is your opportunity to help bring the design language up, right?
Yeah.
And it's not slap another coat of paint stuff that you see on TV. It's enduring, generational, really questioning the way we live. But Ben, I'll let you finish your question.
Oh, no, I mean, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to understand, I guess, what a more successful business model would look like. And maybe that's why you were interested in prefab in the first place. I'm not sure.
More successful. Oh, there's so much stuff there, right? I don't know what success means for you guys. But when I was looking at prefabrication,
efficient then, perhaps.
What I wondered about, what I was super curious about with prefabrication is when it's architect-led residential, why is it not commercially enduring? So there's something in there about architects and business, design and business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that, for me, is the ultimate curiosity. What is this interface between design and business? How can we make it cool to be commercially successful and do good work? And there are some good examples out there. Look at Assembly Architects in Arrowtown. There's a whole lot of examples around the country. We need to talk about that stuff more. It's okay to have a formula or a style or a brand that people come to you for. Not everything has to be designed from scratch. You have to have your own library of reworkable construction details, whatever it is that creates the efficiency in your space. A bunch of templates to know how to do letters and contracts and dialogue with clients. I just think it's not to demean or take away anything from architecture, but there's a business of architecture that we don't talk about enough.
I 100% agree. My answer to that was to become more of the developer.
Yeah, and that's a classic architect's response, is to try and control everything along the way, to design everything down to the furniture and the cutlery. Hello, Albert Elshire and all his myriad of wives. That's a classic
I think it's more the efficiency side that I'd target, though. Not so much for the control, like how to make the process more efficient, and that's probably through control, right?
Yes, of course. It's connecting up the whole value chain. Yeah, and that you see that in the States at the scale of Warren Buffett, where he's got the mortgage enterprises, everything down to the houses that come out of the factory. They make 20 houses a day. I've been into one of these factories, like these
really?
modular or mobile home factories, and they're fascinating. They're in your kind of Midwest. The employees are former military. I've never seen anything like it in terms of a lack of health and safety. They're climbing over each other with nailing guns and glue guns, and they're building these houses from the inside out, which is fascinating to watch. Everything's kind of stapled and sellotaped together, and they are paid something like $12 an hour. But if they make their 20 houses a day in the factory, then they get their kind of $25 an hour. So they're highly incentivized.
Oh, dang.
Wow.
And you can buy a house for $100,000. So we have not got any kind of industry like that here. And look, I'm not saying that on a scale of wrong to right that there's a single right, but we have to offer housing at different scales because in New Zealand at the moment, our social and affordable space is really devoid of activity for all kinds of reasons. But yeah, interesting, eh?
Yeah, we tried to sort of develop something along that lines of a business, off the shelf type offering this year, and we've found it. We just developed the designs and we put the packages together and we have all the information there. But I think what we've kind of maybe we're a bit naive to a misunderstanding is you need to make that jump. You need to have a partner, or you need to be able to make that jump to it being a marketable product. You need to be able to put a price on it. You need to be able to say to a client, it will cost X. And it's a huge jump for us to make as just, a one-off architectural firm. And I guess, Ben, that's where you're talking about bridging it and having that development arm. But again, it comes back to those relationships, as if you're not going to be the developer yourself and control the whole tree, at least have that relationship with somebody that can, assist you in making that jump as well.
100%. Collaboration, partners, your coffee network. And that's where architects have fallen down historically, is by trying to control everything right through to the market. Other people might be better to bring the idea to market. So it's interesting to see who you can sidle up with around branding, marketing. But you're absolutely right. Clients want to have knowns. And that's what we realised through the whole Prefab NZ experience, is that they want a known time frame, a known cost, a known quality. So it almost doesn't matter what it is that you're describing as long as you can provide some level of certainty. Yeah, which is incredibly difficult in this market where it's more art than science.
Yeah. And that certainty changes day to day.
100%. Yeah, it's tricky, eh? But I guess there's something in there about creating repeatable systems or managing expectations, not over-promising, making sure you can over-deliver instead. Yeah. Something about the way we talk to people in architecture, I think, needs to become a bit more real.
The language can be a bit wild, like you talked about at the start, like communication is huge. And if, I don't know, architecture, I like to make concepts that are decipherable to everyone, something a little bit
it
easier
just
to read.
depends what the intention of the communication is, eh? Are we trying to get clients closer to us as architect and design professionals, or are we trying to show them how special we are? And, language can work in either of those ways generally.
Yeah, like what level of involvement do you want? Like, if people can't understand you, they can't really engage.
To Sam's point too, every client wants to tutu with the design, and they've got their own expectations that they're bringing into the room, right? And even when we talk to people like Lockwood or any of the kind of original prefabricated housing providers, they would say that there are no two Lockwoods out there the same. So everybody wants to change something. So where you can get actual repetition is probably more around, I don't know, the shell or details, and then you've got to push and pull. Yeah, so it's more about junctions or general floor areas. But it's amazing, isn't it? People, it's not like cars where anyone's wanting personalisation. I mean, the other way to do it, of course, is just to do that thing like you do with toddlers, which is to give controlled choices. Yeah, it's a great idea. And you can have that in either red or green. And yeah, you can definitely have that cookie. You could either have it tomorrow or later on, like just controlled choices.
Yeah, I guess clients and toddlers tantrums can be pretty similar as well, though.
Oh, so. Yeah. I would add another group to there, but I might get into trouble, so I'll just leave that on.
That was mine.
Oh, awesome. Oh, thanks so much, Pam. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your vast wisdom. So it's so cool.
It's just my own personal perspective. There's no wisdom. Don't make it sound so serious.
Well, it sounds wise to me anyway.
Look, I just encourage everyone to go out and have lots of coffees or whatever it is you like to drink. Yep. And always ask that last question. Who are 3 more people I can have some more coffees with? Especially in the environment right now. Yeah, just get out there and get amongst it. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.